Delegation by 8 p.m. So was it 8, 6 maybe? We'll see. But it is about 4 o'clock, so we'll get started. I would like to start by recognizing we are meeting on the unceded traditional territories of the Comox First Nation. And I think everybody knows, but I'll just quickly point out, if we do have to exit during an emergency, that we can go back through the doors that you entered in. And there's also exits on my side here as well that are marked. So, yeah, there we go. Thank you. Thank you very much, Will. Fantastic. And we do have a motion to move in camera if somebody would like to read that off. Just wait for somebody to click. There we go. Director Hamir.
Great. I'll move that the board adjourn to in-camera sessions pursuant to subsections 91C, 91E, 91K, and that the in-camera portion convene immediately following the open portion of the meeting.
Thank you for seconding that. Any questions? See none. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes. And Councillor Hillian, or Director Hillian, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move that we amend the agenda to bring the Oyster River matters to the fore.
Sounds good. Do you want to be here for the delegations?
No, I'd like to deal with my business, and I have to go to Campbell River.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And what are the, there's... All right. And so that's been moved. Seconded. All those in favor of varying the agenda? Any opposed? That passes. And let's move into F6 then. If that.
August 16th.
All right. And are
August
there
19th,
any?
Pardon me.
Excellent. And are there any questions regarding that? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes.
Okay.
Is that it?
And this board had passed a previous motion last month that we're sending a delegation to Victoria to talk to the minister about the impasse with Strathcona on the water system. So that's already been dealt with, but I thought I'd better come in case people have any questions.
I don't think there's any news on that. So yeah, it's into the sausage maker, and we'll go and make our case.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And thanks for everybody for varying the agenda. And we'll get back to where we were before. So we do have the adoption of minutes. If somebody would like to move that.
Adoption.
Excellent. Are there any questions regarding the minutes of July 30th? No questions or comments. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. And we have some delegations. So first up, we have John Bowman, a president of North Island College. And excellent, that's been moved and seconded. And you have 10 minutes or so to give your presentation, but it's not like at City Council, you know, don't worry, same here where we can ask those questions after the 10 minutes, so.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that intro, and I will just acknowledge that for members of the Comox and Courtenay Councils, this is my third visit to one of our local government bodies, and I'm going to I'll try to mix it up a little bit, but the basic content is the same. I encourage any questions as I conclude. So, building on success, I stand here proudly as president of North Island College, entering my 7th year in this role, and it's been an exciting, fun time, but I think in terms of my experience with the college, our best years are definitely ahead of us. I'm here, well, first of all, I just wanted to provide a bit of context and remind you that we are North Island College. Not quite 7 years ago, when I came to the Valley, I heard a lot from Campbell River and the North Island and Port Alberni that there was a sense that NIC was increasingly becoming the college of the Comox Valley. And our North Island neighbors in other communities weren't feeling really good about that because the college had gone through a period of retrenchment and consolidation and was perceived to be increasingly centralized here in the Comox Valley. I'm proud that we've over the last 6 years seen our programs and facilities expanded and enhanced across the region. I don't have time to go into all of that this afternoon, but obviously, as you can see from this chart, fully half of our student enrollment is here in the Comox Valley, and it is, of course, the headquarters for our administration and support services. So enrollment is growing. We saw an increase in domestic students this past year of about 2% overall, and that increase was certainly reflected here in the Comox Valley. So why am I here? I want to tell you a little bit about our strategic planning process. We are embarking on the development of a new 5-year strategic plan. And importantly, we want you to participate. We want the community as a whole, everyone on the North Island, to have a say in setting our path for the next 5 years. And I certainly want to begin with a big thank you. The support that we receive from local government is important. Your advocacy with the provincial government and federal government and others on our behalf strengthens our case, our business case for things like housing, which I'll touch on momentarily, the support for expanded programs in support of economic development, working together in partnership with our school boards and local government and other agencies is really important. So we're here to talk. I want to brief you on our planning process. We've had a very successful, the current plan will expire March 31st, Plan 2020. So we are well into a new process to develop a plan for the period 2025. And I'm not going to bore you with details about what a strategic plan looks like or contains, but it's about setting our priorities and directions and new goals and reflecting the changes that are happening in our environment. And this is the basic structure that we're going to create. We receive a mandate from the provincial government. We are a provincial government institution created by legislation, the Colleges and Institutes Act. And from that flows our mission, why we exist, and our purpose. We're developing a new set of organizational values as part of our ongoing work, but particularly setting new priorities and articulating goals that we want to accomplish in the next 5 years will be the major outcome of this process. So again, we have in our current plan 9 priorities. I'm not going to read them to you. They're pretty expansive. These 5 speak to what we do, specific to program and service delivery. And then we have 4 that support those other 5. Our current process that's underway began last fall as we've developed an environmental scan, and it's publicly available on our website. I provided a link in the presentation to it. We've compiled a lot of information about the region on a sub-regional basis, from Statistics Canada, the census, other information. We have begun a process, as I mentioned, to develop a new set of core values and guiding ideas for the college, those things that we hold dear and are deeply committed to. And we have reviewed and reflected on our current plan in terms of how we've been successful in moving progress forward, but also importantly, where we still have gaps and more work to do. So that's the foundation for building the plan. Now, this fall and into the new year, we will be reviewing our mission and vision statement. We are actively seeking community and student input, participation, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how we want to do that and how we encourage you to participate. That will contribute to our priority setting and goal development. And we, as part of this process, we're looking at how we will assess and report on our performance. There are certain tools and reports we have to provide to the provincial government, but in particular, we're going to be looking at a new set of key performance indicators in relation to our priorities, which we will publish and share on an annual basis. So I encourage you to, when you have time or insomnia at night, go online and have a look at our current plan, the environmental scan, and our previous institutional accountability plan and reports. That's the IAPR. Within, I'm thinking probably Friday, you'll get an email from me inviting you to participate in our strategic plan survey. And we'd really like you not only to complete the survey, it's going to be short, probably take 10 or 15 minutes for you to complete, but please forward it on. We're also going to be promoting it through social media, Facebook and other social media platforms. As many shares and likes as we can get, we'll encourage. I'd really love to see this survey go viral. I'm hoping for thousands of completed surveys across the North Island. We have 160,000 people in the college region. I'm hoping for 100,000 completed questionnaires at least from everyone who's in the adult age. But seriously, a few thousand would be great. November 4th to 7th, we're going to be hosting a half-day community campus regional forum. You'll be invited to attend face-to-face half-day session. We'll be doing small group discussions around the process, what we've completed to date, seeking input on priorities, the issues that we're facing as an institution, looking for community and regional advice as far as the go-forward plan. And I also welcome any invitations to meet and share and talk about interests, particularly of the RD. We're working with CVRDs. I'll touch upon that a little bit later, perhaps. And really want this to be an engaged process. These are the links that I mentioned. You can check out these foundational background documents. This is the timeline. We're here almost in September, the launch of the strategic planning survey. In November, the community campus forums, and then all working towards a final strategic plan for the board's approval in April of 2020. So I just wanted to close with a few highlights, things specific to the Comox Valley that we've been working on that are coming to fruition. This is not an exhaustive list by any means, and I hope you may have questions about other things that aren't on my list, but we are seeing a period of expansion in healthcare, early childhood education in this region, Indigenous language, the Elder College program is thriving. Really excited about our first footprint in the Comox, not in Courtenay, but having a presence at St. Joseph's Hospital, which is now serving students at that site. We've entered into a 4-year lease with Providence Health to have 6,000 square feet of space for teaching and learning there and delivering healthcare and early childhood education programs. We've just completed a renovation, a $1.1 million renovation and expansion of our student services building, Discovery Hall. It's going to transform how we support students at the front end of their entry into the college. I'm sure you're familiar with our international education program, which continues to thrive. We have this year about 500 students in the Comox Valley. Just met with a new group of students coming in yesterday, about 60 new international students here in the Comox Valley, and we'll have about 100 in Campbell River this year as well. Our business program, degree program, continues to prosper. We've graduated 150 students from our business degree since its inception about 12 years ago. And we are moving ahead. We've just retained architects to help us design the student housing for the Comox Valley campus. We're investing a lot of money up front in order to build a business case that the provincial government will support. We're talking about an approximately $30 million investment in student housing for 168 beds, a mix of individual students and family housing. And we're confident that the case is here. We know there's a demand, and that if the college does our work well, as we intend to, we're going to design and build a facility that will be first class and will be a very attractive and successful place for students to live and study. We're not talking about dormitories here. We're talking about a teaching and learning, living environment that will really be a tremendous asset, not only to the college, but the community. And lastly, thanks to the community support we get from our donors and the work of the North Island College Foundation, we've seen a phenomenal increase in student scholarships and bursaries. $500,000 next year will go to, or pardon me, $500,000 college-wide. Half of that, $250,000, will be delivered to students here in the Comox Valley. Something that isn't on my list, but I will mention because our friends and colleagues from CVRD are here. We're very excited at the college about the growth and the evolution of our relationship with the Comox Valley Economic Development Society. Been participating in the Innovate 2030 process, and more focused efforts around the Food Hub program and the development of new programming and implementation of new programming here in the Comox Valley that will support market gardening, for example, food processing, and we think there's a lot of other potential things that we can and should be doing in partnership with local government, with CVRD and other partners to, a lot of synergy is potential that we haven't tapped yet. So just wanted to throw that out there, and if you have any questions about anything I've said, our planning process or other things the college is up to, happy to take your questions for as long as you want to ask them. I'll leave it at there, Mr. Chair.
All right, thanks very much, John. Excellent presentation for the second time. I couldn't see the differences, but I'm sure they were in there. Just, but one thing I was going to comment on, and I don't think the lights are on yet, but the sign outside the building in the timber frame thing, it's looking very nice. So glad to see that moving forward.
Thank you.
And we do have a few comments and questions. So Director Hamir.
Great, thank you. I have about 3 questions. So if you wouldn't mind maybe elaborating on that market garden project, because I believe Director Grieve and I were speaking to some staff maybe about a year ago about that idea. So we're really excited to hear it's going forward.
It is going forward, and we're very enthusiastic about it. We run it successfully in Port Alberni, and we're happy to bring it here and perhaps eventually to Campbell River. Again, working in partnership with CVEDs around potentially funding it. If we run it without grant funding, it's expensive in terms of individual tuition costs. So we are looking at different grant funding opportunities to support it. But one way or another, we're committed to making it happen.
Yeah.
I think the timeline is January 2020 to launch it, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But it's really, we've only run the program once, but it was very successful in Port Alberni, and we think it has great potential on an ongoing basis.
I would suggest hitting up a couple of the Farmers Institutes in the Valley
Great idea.
for some fun, like scholarships or what the institutes.
Scholarships would be very helpful, yeah, to defray the costs of individual tuition if we have to go that route.
Yeah.
I know that John Watson is looking into some potential community grant funding that might support it, or will be looking into it.
Great.
Maybe he can speak to that when he gets to the microphone. He'll know.
And then just
yeah.
a question about the food hubs,
Yeah.
because I saw the announcement that North Island College was successful in receiving some funding, or maybe if you could clarify, because we also haven't asked for support, and I'm just wondering what all of the different projects are about, or are they the same, part of the same? Or?
My understanding is that they are part of the same provincial process. In Campbell River, we have received support to develop business case, I think. There was a grant of $50,000. I'm not clear exactly yet in terms of who's where in terms of the process, but there's also one being initiated in Port Alberni. There's one at the Deep Bay,
Yep.
what's that called? Shellfish Center. So I think, John, you reported that there were 9 proposed. Yeah, I'll let John speak to that.
Okay.
So, but we are enthusiastic, and we'd love to see 2 of them within the North Island region.
Okay, great. And then just lastly, through another fund, through the Ministry of Ag, I believe Lush Valley is going to be receiving some funding to look at the possibility of like a food aggregation site. So not a hub that processes, but the idea is to use the demand from local institutions, like from public institutions, to be the cornerstone. And I think they were looking at the schools first, but I'm not sure if the college was included in that. So is that something that there might be some opportunity in approaching the college to try and get more local food into, I guess, your cafeteria, their other food services?
Ooh, definitely. And
Yeah.
my memory's a little foggy as I get older, but there was the Feed Comox project. Yeah, it was funded by the McConnell Foundation, if I remember correctly. So we're very enthusiastic about that idea. I know that it's challenging logistically, but we're certainly open to that
Yeah.
possibility.
Who should I send Lush to? Do you know someone on staff that?
In terms of our own consumption of food?
Yeah, or who would be a person to connect with
I'm going to
Lush?
suggest that Colin Fowler, our Vice President of Finance and Facilities, who has responsibility for our ancillary services, including food, cafeteria, he'd be the best person to connect with. I'll mention that you'll be in touch.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent. And Director Moore.
Great, thank you, Chair, and thanks for the presentation. We know we had an unfortunate incident last week with the folks who were targeted with a racial slur when they were playing cricket, and I believe some of them are international students. And I just wondered if you had a particular response to those kind of incidents, or is there, other than them reaching out, is there anything that you do in those types of situations that happen occasionally, unfortunately, in the community?
We do, as part of the community's response through the community protocol against anti-racism, homophobia, and other xenophobia. So I was actually pleased to see how the community responded to that. I thought it was quite heartwarming. Those incidents are unfortunate. Fortunately, they are fairly rare, and I think we are committed to diversity and inclusion and promoting it in the community. So we're open to other responses and collaborating with other partners. But I felt it was unfortunate, but the community's response and the positive publicity that I guess was good, and the subsequent cricket match that occurred was a great thing. So I don't think we want to blow that, incidents like that way out of proportion, but I think it was called, it was cited, and so it was a good educational moment, a teaching moment.
With classes not in session right now, you may not have had the contact, but
No.
yeah, I just wondered if there was any reaching out that occurs in those kind of situations.
Normally, there would be, certainly through our Office of Global Engagement, and our advisors and counselors would have reached out to if our students were impacted. Fortunately, I thought the maturity of some of our former students and how they responded really helped to respond effectively.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Right, and alternate director Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was actually going to follow up on something that Councillor Director Morin said. Is actually in relation to that same incident. I actually reached out on Facebook to Ajinkya, who is quoted in the Record article, just to say I was just really appalled and actually had the same idea, suggested a game, and apparently one happened the next day. But he and I ended up talking about there being a game a week Sunday for community leaders. So anyone who'd like to play cricket, 5 o'clock a week Sunday. And he also said that they are using apparently dowels and 2x4s for wickets. And so I put a request into the CAO of the City of Courtenay to see if we might be able to provide them with some aid and grant or some kind of proper equipment for the game. But if anyone happens to be free that Sunday, it's the Sunday after Labor Day, it'd be great to see you all there.
Is it like curling?
It's a lot like curling, fewer rocks and far fewer brooms, but otherwise it's pretty much the same.
And apparently a game can last 4 days or 2 weeks or something. I'm not.
But there's tea and sandwiches.
Yes, absolutely.
Cucumbers, yeah.
I'll wait.
Excellent. I don't see any other questions or comments at this point, but I will reiterate what I said at the city, which I think it was great the way that Lou Dryden was acknowledged for the work that he's done at the college and his vision. And it, again, it was probably 15 years ago or 16 years ago that I spoke to him about a student housing complex of some sort. So it's great to see that coming to fruition. And I know when we talk about housing in the community, I mean, the actual capacity we have is always strained, and so it's great to see that the college is stepping up, so that it's one less burden or kind of reduce some of that pressure. So much appreciated. So thank you.
I just leave you with a request. I know that the Union of BC Municipalities meetings are coming up in September, and any good words you can put in with our minister or other cabinet ministers regarding the importance of post-secondary education and training and supporting North Island College, because we are severely under-resourced compared to our sister institutions in other parts of British Columbia. So we love NIC. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John. All right. All those in favor of his receipt or his presentation? Any opposed? And that passes. So excellent. You got I think it's 100%. So next we have CVEDs. If somebody would like to move receipt.
Move, second.
Excellent. And we got the microphone all ready for you.
It's 100 degrees. I'm going to help myself to this water. I hope it's not just for
No, it's
members of the round table here. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, I'm fine. Okay, so thank you for receiving our delegation today and to update you on the Food Innovation and Processing Hub application and requests for letter of support. We look forward to any questions that we have afterwards. Firstly, I'd like to recognize members of our board, the CVEDS board, who are here in the room today. Arzina Hamir, CVRD Area B, Edwin Grieve, CVRD Area C, and Daniel Arbor, CVRD Area A. Thank you so much for your support at the board. The 2019 approved strategic work plan includes supporting and facilitating an innovation food center and processing project. Further to this part of the Innovation 2030 online business service identified agri-food processing was a major infrastructure project that would have the most positive impact on the Comox Valley economy. In June 2019, the university the Minister of Agriculture released a request for qualifications for Food Hub project. And within our work plan and support of 20-plus partner groups for CVEDs, we prepared and submitted the RFQ. On July 24th, CVEDs was notified it successfully pre-qualified to submit a response to the RFP by September 3rd, 2019. So we'll be pretty busy to get that done by next Tuesday. So right now, I would like to introduce Spencer. He is Dr. Spencer Sarin, CVED's Director and Laboratory Service Manager of Food Metrics Laboratories in Courtenay, who has been supporting the submission process over the summer. So I'd just like to mention that our Board of Directors each contribute in areas of their expertise in advance to our work plan. So I'd like to thank Spencer for his support and his knowledge on this process. Thank you.
Well, this is very nice. Thank you, everyone, for letting me talk to you and meet and introduce myself, I guess, as a new member or new director of CVED, and also in my capacity as the manager of Food Metrics Laboratory, which you will see hopefully fits quite a bit into this food hub, proposed food hub that we have going forward. I wanted to begin just briefly with the story of Food Metrics, which began before I started working there, when it was identified by the Small Scale Food Processors Association in conjunction with our parent company Biomedics that the Comox Valley was ripe for a food analysis laboratory. Food Metrics is a model that's been developed at several other sites in Washington State, and I include myself now, we're interested in seeing if that model could be extended into the Comox Valley. And at that time, the Comox Valley was identified as being a major hub that could benefit from having a full-scale microbial analysis and chemical analysis, food analysis company involved. Now, with the change in the food safety laws in Canada starting in January 2019, there's a lot more work that has to be done to prove that you have a safe product for human consumption that can be sold at stores, retailed, and demonstrate using various tried and true microbial and scientific methods that you have a safe food product for consumption. And that's the importance of Food Metrics Labs. And the Comox Valley was a really exciting area to test out this model because you have such an interesting mix of owner-operated food production and producers centered around aquaculture, shellfish, agriculture, vegetables, as well as meats, poultry, dairy. There's so many things in such a small radius from where we are right now that really all have very different requirements from a food safety model, and certainly from a secondary food processing model that are difficult to accomplish just by one food processor. And this food hub model was sort of brought forward by the Ministry of BC to kind of address this Feed BC, Buy BC, Grow BC model that we're looking at going forward. We want BC to be able to contribute to Canada and, internationally into the food world. We have an area here that allows a lot of food to be produced, and it's a shame that we can't sell it or at least be sustainable. And the Comox Valley is a really exciting area to test out our ability to do that. But to do that, we need to provide tools to food processors that allow them to scale up pre-existing products, to maintain certain levels of high safety in the products that they produce, and that allow them to remain competitive and export and do all the things that makes food delicious, but also maintain it being safe. And in partnership with Food Metrics Laboratory as a microbial analysis lab, CVEDs under John has brought together a really great core team of partners, including North Island College, Salish Seafoods, which is the representative of the Comox First Nations, Pickled Carrot Catering, and Lentilus Farms. And each one of these key partners allows us to do a different thing that can all sort of work together in this food hub model. North Island College is, as you heard, putting forward a lot of this very interesting training in food processing and food safety, as well as brewing courses and things like that. Pickled Carrot Catering has now developed a commissary kitchen model where people can rent out their kitchen that's now a food safe area so that they can scale up production and turn their vegetables into an actual product that can be sold in stores. Lentilus Farms is looking at increasing their capacity to be able to do secondary meat and poultry processing. Salish Seafood is looking at being able to do select fish and shellfish processing, and under food metrics safety, ability to maintain and monitor safety protocols, we can make sure all of these partners are able to meet the stringent rules of Health Canada. We just recently received our ISO accreditation, our 17025 accreditation. That's the International Organization of Standardization. It's pretty much the top level of accreditation for food safety. We've increased our scope to allow us to test all of these key industries that I've said here today: aquaculture, vegetables, feed, and meat and vegetables. And together with this food hub idea that we've introduced, as I've been blabbering on about, I think there's a very exciting opportunity for the Comox Valley to bring together these partners and really make something special with this new Ministry of BC grant that's come forward. And I believe that's why we're here today, is to get your support and to answer any questions you might have about how we're going about this plan. I think that's right. Are we happy with that? I just opened
Are you
my mouth
asking
and
us
see
or
what
telling
happens.
us?
It's John, he's the guidance.
Fantastic. We do have some questions. Director Hamir.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Spencer, for the presentation, and Dina, thanks. So just a question, like, is there like a physical, do you have an idea physically what this food hub would look like?
I do. I know John has put a lot more thought into it in terms of how the individual partners and the role that they play. I can tell you the role that we would play as the lab, because I think it's really important that all of these places maintain the highest level of sanitation and food safety in regard to their processes. And by working with us, we're going to be able to ensure that all the facilities, whatever they're handling in there, can be properly monitored and safely produced. So it's a hub in that it's a collection of all of these partners, and depending on the particular process that you're looking to do as a member of the food hub, you'll kind of get sent to one of these main processing areas. And then you'll work with food metrics laboratories to make sure that your process is identified for any of the health risks associated with it, and that when you're actually in the facility that you're following the protocols that you developed when you worked with us.
Sure. So it's not like necessarily a single site. It sounds like it's distributed.
And I think that's the safest way to do it when you're talking about co-mingling different agricultural products. Like, it's not, I can tell you as a food safety guy that you don't want to be handling raw shellfish beside your vegan salad establishment. You know, it's not.
Sure.
It's just very difficult to sanitize
Yeah.
that kind of environment.
Yeah.
So that's what's really cool about having the different partners in areas.
Okay. And then just one other question. Do you have an idea what the level of demand or readiness is for, like, there's a lot of, as you said, primary producers who are wanting to scale up, but do you have an idea of how many of those there are, what the demand would be?
Demand readiness is
Yeah.
John Watson's question. He's my demand readiness guy. What are we talking about?
I thought I was getting out of this. Hi, I think everybody knows who I am. So first, just to follow up on the, if I may, on the facility portion, we should clarify the partners. Salish Seafood, of course, the fish processing plant. Pickled Carrot Commissary. So those of you that know Pickled Carrot know that they started as a great small catering company and moved to the food truck, and then decided to take on a 2,400 square foot commercial kitchen, which is in place on Ryan Road in the buildings next to the thrift shop, that area there close to the wing. And they have adapted their model to, prior to this RFQ and RFP process, to that of Commissary Connect out of Vancouver. Very cool. And then Lentius Farms. Has anybody been to the farmers market and seen them? Of course. And great small family operation on Ducks Unlimited farms. So they've got the 20-year lease and are contributing and partnering with North Island College in the farm market program that Mr. Bowman spoke to you earlier about. A great project that has been fantastic in Port Alberni, and I think can work really well from a small-scale perspective at the Ducks Unlimited Farm. The barn buildings there, if you haven't been in them recently, do have working cold storage. There is potential to do some custom meat processing there at a scale that is certainly needed in the valley from smaller producer perspective than perhaps what happens at Gunter's. And so it's a neat partnership between the college and then we'll use that as another facility within the food hub as they get their VHA licensing. In regards to demand, one of the things that is really important to know about food here from a kind of a small business development or farm development perspective is the sheer magnitude of feasibility and business planning, community, be it OCP or local area planning, certainly sustainability strategy, regional growth strategy, and dozens and dozens of studies into commercial kitchen needs and small-scale food or farm needs. The list of background research extends into the 90s, and it is extensive and, in fact, I think exhaustive. So with this particular funding opportunity, there is an envelope to apply for feasibility studies, business planning around a food hub, or to just apply for the food hub. And we decided to apply for the food hub. So there were three categories: one to apply for a food lab, one to provide or to apply for a small-scale food processing center, and a larger application for applying for both within the context of a HACCP CFIA certified facility. We're in the small-scale food processing space, and from a demand perspective, we did two things. We pulled from that back extensive literature. We had already received quite a bit of information in regards to demand through the Innovate 2030 process, and we've done a number of sample surveying out into the agri-food sector and small shellfish sector on a grower's perspective. So we're at about, I think, about 80 to 100 now respondents in regards to our demand survey for this particular RFP, and it breaks it down into all of the aspects of the RFP in regards to the type of use, type of equipment requirements that might help that company or that small farm or small caterer or chef or food producer expand their business. So a bit of a couple of questions perhaps answered there, and certainly I think we've got a really good case on the demand side and the need. Where are you? There you are.
Right here. That's good. Director Amir, did you have more
no, that
questions?
was it.
I know you said you had a few, but all right. Director Grieve.
Thank you very much. And Spencer, you've just dove into the deep end of the pool, feet first on this one. So,
I didn't know.
boy, are
there
you a
was I
lucky
didn't know there
guy to
was a
become
pool,
a
so-
director. And you're working cheap, I imagine, too. So
Is anyone getting paid for this?
double his wages. My question is around the RFQ. My understanding is that that it scored on the top four. It was one of the top four when it was submitted, and but there's only 2 spots available for this particular funding opportunity, correct? And my question is, this is a lot of work going into this, and good on you. I mean, it's been, like you say, back in the 90s, I've been talking about this for a long time. So this is such a very exciting opportunity, I think, for food processing, small-scale food processing, and agriculture in general. But my question is, with these kind of funding opportunities that come along every so often, is there anything in the wind of a second release? If we don't make that top 2 spots, is there something else next year, or do we have to wait and find out if the province is going to repeat it?
I'll answer this until I get tapped on the shoulder by John that I'm answering it bad. I think especially going in with the early assessment of 4th place, I mean, at that point, when we submitted our original request, it was very general. And we hadn't really sat down and thought about how our key partners are going to work together and really establish a net. So on the face value and getting accepted and getting in fourth of I believe 9, but scoring, only several points below the top ranked position, now that we've really massaged this product or the request and actually thought about the role everyone's going to play and really sort of demonstrated how each of these partners allow us to address a different sort of sector within the Comox Valley, I think we've really strengthened it to the point where there's no reason that we're not as eligible as the top candidate at this point. And additionally, I do believe that there may be a secondary call, but the secondary call doesn't make you more likely to get in if you wait or if you decide to try and keep massaging it to the point that it's going to be more competitive potentially in the second call. And then the third thing is, it was important that we took the time to address the role and potential food hub for these key partners, because North Island College is creating a food processing course. Like, that's happening. Sailor Seafood is looking at doing custom wrap for fish processing and seafood. Food Metrics Laboratory is like, I should hopefully be in business. We are looking to play a role in food safety in the valley. Pickle Carrots is making a commissary kitchen. Lentiless Farms has a 20-year lease. Like, they're committed. So we have identified that this is happening, but I think with the support of the BC Ministry and certainly the technology that is inherent to this request, because it will be looked at by the ministry for effectiveness, where we're going to be getting additional help at the feasibility of our food hub as a point of getting the food hub grant. It allows us to sort of be in communication with people who are really looking at this on a large scale and actually strengthening the food hub that we're going to be creating anyway. So, yeah, that would be.
I'm sorry, I just one more. When will the final decision come down the pike?
We have to submit it before 2 p.m. on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And I suspect we'll hear in a month, 4 to 6 weeks. They want to move quickly, so.
Yeah, they made it say like when the implementation plan was September for a submission date of September. So
there's still time to lobby at UBCM.
I think
Good, thank you.
It wouldn't hurt.
Save that for housing.
Excellent. Director Kettler.
Yeah, just some clarification from John. You said there was the three models for the grant. There was the lab and the food processing, and then the lab and food processing together. And which one did we go for?
Small scale food processing center.
So just the food processing.
Yeah, and of course, there is an existing lab, and so that strengthens the application already within the community by having the lab as well, so.
Okay, but so there'll be less focus on the lab portion or the safety aspects of the food? Is that?
The focus of the small-scale food processing category that we're part of is to build out the services, business services, technology services, and support the access to facilities for processing activity across the full spectrum of agriculture, land and sea-based food, and the beverage sector. So, that'll be the primary purpose of it. Having a food lab ISO certified recently, this last week, is really critical to the whole broader suite of assets in our food sector here in the Comox Valley.
Okay, so just to ask more about the lab, are you doing screening for sort of basic bacterial stuff for, produce? And then are you also doing work for the shellfish? So that would be their basic bacterial load that they screen for, and then also the phytotoxins that they would also be screening for. Is that all part of it?
So at this point, our scope includes the standard microbial suites that would be standard for dairy, meat, fish, and vegetable-based products. And our model going forward was depending on the interest of some of the finer, more particular testing, we can expand our scope to include it. The thing is, though, when you do our accreditation audit, I have to show every test. And so right now our scope is about 55 tests. We weren't looking to make it $65 for the first round, and it just becomes very expensive and stressful. But at this point, we chose our scope to be all-encompassing for the industries we identified in the Comox Valley. We can test shellfish for some of the key things, which are coliform, E. coli, as well as Vibrio, and that's what we've included in our shellfish suite. We can expand our testing protocol to include allergens, but right now we've just sort of focused on the major pathogenic microorganisms, Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli 157, on food and water. So we can check things like spent irrigation water in the sprout industry, for example, things like that. So we cast a fairly wide net, but we identified that as the most effective for the lab to begin with. And certainly if we start seeing a major push for additional toxin measurements, Biomedics, the parent company of Food Metrics, has something like 495 labs around the world. Some major shellfish ones included in that list. So they have the technology available for it. So, yeah.
Great. And just to follow up, I don't know what happens already, but the tracking system for produce and for shellfish, are you going to be helping the producers with that, or is that something that's
So how
already-
they track their product when it comes to us, or how they label it, or how they treat it when it's in their facility?
Well, since
or?
you've screened it and then say it went forward and something did pop up, say some E. coli or something, and then how that's tracked back.
Yes.
to-
So the protocol for recalls, like
Yeah.
in this case, is something that's a requirement of the producer. But certainly we can help audit the effectiveness of their recall system, which would be part of their general HACCP plan. And that's something that Food Metrics will also be doing in the Comox Valley going forward.
Great, thank you.
Right, and Director Hillian.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. Certainly don't have any hesitation to support this going forward, but there's a couple of things that I need a little bit more concrete information on. How much money are you asking for?
So the maximum amount for the application in this category is $500,000. The eligibility for expenses is what you would expect. It's a bit of equipment, potential lease, funding to hire specific skilled staff to operationalize the hub and
So there
support
actually
the
is
net.
a physical location that will be different from what exists right now, and that it'll have staff in it that'll be coordinating all these activities.
The approach, that's a great question. The approach that we're taking is a multi-facility approach layered by an education approach. And so our four core facilities will be where access will be provided in the context of the hub requirements versus, as an example, trying to build a new facility and stock
Yeah.
it with equipment and services.
Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out, okay, the $500,000, so that goes to what, pay each of these operators for space in their facility, extra equipment, extra staff, that type of thing?
You would probably want, the way that it's shaping up and how we're planning with the partnership team, an advisory group that's been formed is to look at a position. So we'll seek funding for a position to support the hub requirements because it is a legal agreement to deliver on program requirements. And that particular person will then liaison with the hub members and the local community in that regard. So there'll be funding for that. Where there is an identified equipment need, there's not a lot of funding there, but we may be putting in for a couple of key equipment requirements across the spectrum if needed. And then in the event of services provided by those facilities, that would be treated by in contract or lease. So there would be funding to support that. For an interim, short-term basis, the intention of the hub and the funding is to deal within the pilot project to advance the technology solutions and onboard clients, but it's to be sustained by the private sector going forward.
Right, and you also mentioned in your letter training, who actually delivers training? Are there existing bodies that do that, or is that something that
So a couple items there. So North Island College has come on as the primary post-secondary and public training provider. and there's been, Mr. Bowman noted some of the courses in that regard. So that will be kind of a primary training capacity. We also have Excel Career College that has come on board to provide some Indigenous specific training, and that program will operate as well in the event of a successful hub. Then as a third layer, there is the industry that CVEDS works with within the food space, both industry associations and government service providers at the senior level. And we do training all the time through those bodies and with those bodies. In fact, right now we have a 2-day HACCP course operating out of the boardroom in the building.
What's that?
And that's with the Small Scale Food Processors Association. Oh. So there'll be a number of training partners that participate in the program.
Great. Thanks very much.
All right, I don't see any further questions or comments, so thanks very much for your presentation, and looking forward to things happening. Yeah, we'll do our best to support you, I'm sure. All those in favor of receipt? Any opposed? There was a request for a letter of support. Second. I tried. They were too fast. Looking at staff, do you need any more information on the letter, or is that good enough? We're good? All right. All those in favor of a letter? Yep, absolutely. Director Hamir.
Just in light of some of the questions that Director Hillian had, I'm wondering if we can ask to see the application, like where all the funding is going and who's being paid. I don't know if that's important for the rest of the directors, but I'd like to just double check that we're not, keep for liability issues or
Okay.
whatever.
If I was hearing correctly, this has to be submitted on Tuesday,
Yeah.
and today's Tuesday, and there's a long weekend in there. So I don't know if, because would we have to have a secondary meeting, like a special meeting to consider?
Is the request just that we have a copy for our information or record?
Yeah, I think so. That would
Yeah.
be helpful.
That's it. That's good. All right. I'm seeing nods and smiles all the way around. So excellent. I just, in my mind, I was like, yeah, perfect. So, so back to the question of letter of support. See no further questions or comments. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. So thanks for the two presentations. And it's not quite 6 o'clock, but I think you're on time. So, all right. All right, thanks, everybody. Moving right along, we have the Electoral Area Services Committee, August 12th minutes. Excellent. Are there any questions regarding the minutes from August 12th? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes, and there are some recommendations. Director Arbour.
Move recommendation 1 that the board approve the development variance permit DV5A19 on Staples to increase the maximum permitted height of the principal building from 10 meters to 10.45 meters. The property described as Lot B, Section 28, Township 11, Nelson District Plan. And finally, that the corporate legislative officer be authorized to execute the permit.
That's been seconded. Any questions regarding that recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. And there's a second recommendation.
Move to.
That the Comox Valley Regional District Board approve the development variance permit DV9B Barnsley to reduce the minimum rear yard setback for the proposed secondary dwelling from 7.5 meters to 5 meters and reduce the minimum rear yard setback for the eaves of the proposed secondary dwelling from 5.5 to 4.5 meters for the property described as 1919 Thurber Road.
And
finally, that the corporate legislative officer be authorized to execute the permit.
By the end of the year, this is just going to be rolling off our tongues, excellent.
For the short recommendation.
Yeah. Would somebody like to second that? Excellent. Any questions or comments regarding that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That passes, and I've reset the lights. Director Grieve.
Oh, heck, I wanted number 4. Recommendation 3, move it.
Second.
And it is that the Comox Valley Regional District Board approves the development variance permit DV7B19 Clark to reduce the minimum side yard road setback from 4.5 meters to 2.75 meters for the dwelling 2.5 meters to 2.14 meters for the eaves. Number 2, to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 6 meters for the accessory building, 5.5 meters to 5.37 meters for the eaves, and to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 1.75 meters to 1.3 meters for the accessory building, 0.88 meters to 0.63 meters for the eaves. For the property described as Lot 20, Block 29, Comox Valley Plan 11986, PID 001-293-052. That's 5956 Aldergrove Drive. And finally, that the corporate legislative officer be authorized to execute the permit upon receipt of the setback permit from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure.
That's been seconded, the extended version, and Director Hamir.
Oh, no, I was going to move the second one. sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, she's
excellent.
going for the little one.
All right, fair enough. That's been seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That passes. And Director Hamir.
Right, I'll move recommendation 4, that the board approve the development variance permit DV 5C19 for Lockett and Hull House to increase the maximum building height from 6 to 6.91 meters for an accessory building at property on 8575 Laurie Road, and that the corporate legislative officer be authorized to execute the permit.
Second.
Excellent. Any questions or comments regarding that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. And next, Director Grieve.
I'd like to move recommendation 5, that the 2019-2023 financial plan and capital expenditure program for the Denman Island Economic Development Service function 555 be amended to increase operational grant expenditures by $27,000 in 2019 to be funded by way of a contribution from future expenditure reserves from the reserve function 555.
Excellent. Any questions or comments regarding that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. And Director Kettler. Oh, all sorts of lights going on there.
I'll move recommendation 6, that the Comox Valley Regional District authorize the implementation of a formalized process as outlined in the August 6, 2019 staff report for the consideration of the future requests from external nonprofit organizations within the Comox Valley for financial support utilizing community works funds.
All right, it's been seconded. Any questions? Director Arbour.
Yeah, for the Board of Directors, this is something that was discussed at the last board meeting, and historically, I guess the internal sort of preference of the regional district was to allocate community works funds principally to CVRD assets and related infrastructure, and this will open up potentially an avenue for other nonprofits and partnerships to apply for those funds.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. And Director Morin.
I'll move recommendation 7, that the request from the Hornby Island Arts Council for $175,000 in community works funds to support the construction of a new art center on Hornby Island be approved, subject to staff confirming all requirements of the CWF agreement between the CVRD and UBCM being met, the CVRD indicating support for the project through a formal board resolution, staff being directed to prepare a contribution agreement between the CVRD and the HIAC that sets out all pertinent commitments of both parties, including but not limited to those outlined in the August 6, 2019 staff report, and the CVRD supports by way of a formal board resolution the transfer of funds to the HIAC to support the project and its eligible costs as outlined in Schedule C of the CWF agreement.
Second.
Excellent. Are there any questions or comments regarding this? I might just, I'll just comment that I did receive a letter for somebody that was just concerned about the ongoing sustainability costs of it, and I'm not sure if anybody's able to speak to. When I read this, it says that, you know, there's going to be limitations on what the regional district's going to be contributing, but I thought it might be worth commenting on.
At this time, the regional district is only committing to the capital funds. The Hornby Island Arts Council has developed a 5-year business plan, and they will be looking for funders and assistance. They have identified the regional district as being a possibility, but there's no commitment made at this time. For the regional district to fund that would require the establishment of a service. So there would be a public process. So any concerned citizens about ongoing funding, their concerns will be met with through the process that would be required for us to go down that road. And if the Arts Council wasn't able to secure funds from the regional district, they would just have to modify their operational programs, but they feel that they have the capacity to do that.
All right, thanks very much for that clarification. I really appreciate it. Seeing no further questions or comments, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. And Director Arbour.
Move recommendation 8 that staff review the electoral area arts and culture grant service, function 615, grant and aid services, function 120 to 124, Denman and Hornby recreation grant services, function 605 and 606, and heritage conservation service, function 691 to 695, for the purpose of developing guidelines for applicants, ensuring a transparent process and equal opportunity to funding, determining if some initiatives should be funded by contract rather than relying on grant processes, determining whether new community hall services are warranted, and lastly, evaluating the possibility of consolidation of services or grant programs, and that staff bring back a report reviewing the above and providing recommendations.
All right, thanks very much. If someone could second that. And any questions or comments? Director Grieve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some reservations about some of this language because it's pretty prescriptive. It's assuming that there isn't equal opportunities for funding right now, and I have an issue over, especially our various electoral areas have their own little grant and aid budget, which is paid into by only the residents of that electoral area, and in some cases it's the only discretionary money that we get to spend, and of course there's a lot of people out there that they're relying on it year to year, and I do see the need to review it. But I also have a little bit of suspicion around who actually gets to decide, what the funding is, what it is equal opportunity for funding, et cetera, et cetera. So I will wait and see how it all pans out. But like I say, sometimes it feels like an erosion of what very little discretionary powers we have as electoral area directors. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. And now we get down to the Hornby Island Art Center, I believe. Move receipt. Excellent. And I'll pass it over to Steph.
Yeah, Chair and Directors, I'll just ask Kevin DeVelde to come up and give a brief presentation. Basically, the upcoming or forthcoming recommendations for your consideration are implementing the previous consideration given by the EA directors and our specific resolutions required to initiate this. And Kevin will just give you a brief outline and then answer any of your questions.
Oh, how about I turn that on for you? There you go.
Thanks so much. Through the chair to the directors. So mostly for the benefit of the municipal directors, I just wanted to give you kind of a brief synopsis of what the Hornby Island Art Council has presented to the EA directors. So they initially approached the electoral area directors back in June. And based on that presentation, staff was asked to bring back some additional information to the directors with respect to the Community Works Fund specifically, and how many of those funds were available, what potential future uses we saw, and the required authorizations that would be required if we chose to move down the road to opening up the availability of those funds to third-party nonprofit organizations. So the staff report and the recommendations in front of you today are in relation to recommendation 7 and specifically to items B and D in that recommendation from the August 12th EASC meeting. But to give you a sense of the scope of the project, so what the Hornby Island Art Center is proposing is a 2,900 square foot facility located on Hornby Island. This would be located on a Crown lease site that's currently occupied under a Crown lease with the provincial government by the Hornby Island Residents and Ratepayers Association. That is a long-term lease arrangement through currently 2038. Their goal is to promote and support the roughly 60 professional resident artists and their studios on the island, and they want to provide them a kind of coalesced space to help promote both those businesses and their activities. Right now, they're based out of a fairly old, aging trailer that they would like to obviously expand more greatly out of that. So at this point, they're hoping to begin, or they have already undertaken some design work. They're hoping to complete that through the remainder of 2019 and look at construction likely sometime in 2020. To give you a sense of the funding involved, the lion's share of their funding is now secured. They were able to fundraise over the last number of years approximately $180,000 that they've been putting aside towards this project. They've also received a commitment actually through HiSeek and our Hornby Island Economic Development Service, 556, $25,000 to help support the project. They've also been able to secure $175,000 in iced tea dollars. And as of just last week, they received word from Heritage Canada, who has committed $375,000 to the project as well. So overall, with the addition of the Community Works funds and some in-kind contributions, you're looking at a total project of just over $1 million. So it's a pretty sizable investment on the island. The reason for the recommendations is based on guidelines provided to us through UBCM pertaining to our agreement with UBCM and the Community Works funds. The board is required to do two things formally. First, to, through a formal board motion, indicate their support for the project overall. And second, to authorize the transfer of the commitment of the dollars to the organization. So those are the recommendations that are outlined to you today. With that in hand and the recommendations brought forward from the EASC committee, staff will then work on developing a funding contribution agreement that will then help support that funding. So I'll probably leave it at there and certainly welcome to answer any questions.
All right, and I don't see any lights just yet. I'm looking at the table on page 28 that just talks about all the potential Denman and Hornby funding requests, and the only reason it just says there's a potential oversubscription by about 250,000. So I don't know if that just means some projects get delayed or how that plays out.
Yeah, so right now there's no firm commitments outside of about a couple, sorry, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but there are a few existing projects that have been firmly committed. The rest and most of the ones that I've outlined in that table are ones that staff have identified as potential projects coming down the pipe. Those would still be vetted through the annual financial planning process and will be looked at in conjunction with the available allocations to the specific areas.
Perfect. Thanks very much. I don't see any further questions or comments. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that is just, I believe, on receipt of presentation.
Correct.
And then we can move on to, all right. And recommendation to formally indicate that we do support the construction. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. And the second recommendation, Director Hermier.
Sure, I'll move that the Comox Valley Regional District authorize the transfer of $175,000 in Community Works Funds dollars from the allocation for Denman Hornby Islands to the Hornby Island Arts Council towards the eligible construction costs of a new arts center on Hornby Island, subject to A, confirmation that all requirements of the CWF agreement between the CVRD and the Union of BC Municipalities can continue to be met, and B, a contribution agreement being duly executed between the CVRD and the Hornby Island Arts Council that sets all pertinent commitments of both parties, including but not limited to those outlined in the August 7th, 2019 staff report. and further that the corporate financial officer be authorized to execute the final contribution agreement.
Excellent. And are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That passes. And the final recommendation, Alternate Director Cole Hamilton.
Okay. Recommendation 3 moves that the 2019-2023 financial plan for the administration and general government service functions 110 and 111 be amended to increase the 2019 expense for conditional grants to local agencies by $175,000 as a contribution to the Hornby Islands Art Council towards the construction of a new art center on Hornby Island to be funded by the Denman Hornby Islands allocation of the Comox Valley Regional District's federal gas tax funding brackets.
Excellent. Any questions or comments regarding that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And I guess what's going to happen to that blue trailer?
I'll leave that up to them to decide.
We have some housing things. Maybe we can move it someplace. We'll have a third or fourth life. It looks like it's been there for a while. So thanks very much, staff, for the great reports. And on to the sewage August 13th minutes. And are there any questions regarding the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That passes. And we have the Water Committee from August 13th. And and has that been, did you get a second? Excellent. And any questions regarding the water? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. And Committee of the Whole from August 13th. Excellent. And are there any questions regarding the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And there are some recommendations.
That pursuant to Section 39 of the Local Government Act, a bylaw be forwarded to the board to be adopted, I guess, by October.
It might just be missing some words.
By October 31st, 2019, allowing for a permissive tax exemption for 100% of the taxable land and improvements for the year 2020 for the property known as Parcel A, Sunnydale Golf Society, with the exception of the portion of Class 06 business other relating to the pro shop operations.
And that's been seconded. And Director Grieve, did you have a question or comment?
Just a question. When we give a tax exemption like this, the municipalities give tax exemptions as well, do they not?
Yes.
And this is for all. Why does the municipalities vote on our tax exemptions?
It's not a service in which there are participants that would sign on to and therefore only be eligible to vote for, so it's a corporate vote of all.
It only works one way. Fine.
Actually, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Bear in mind, the implication to this is foregoing taxes for all the services that the regional district provides, not just those of the specific electoral area or that the property might participate in. So it is a broader consideration.
All right. All right. Thanks for the clarification. Director Arbor, do you have any further questions?
Light on. There you go. You've got the controls. Yeah, I mean, further to this, you know, we just passed earlier a plan to look at a review of our grants, and I'm wondering what the process is for people to ask exemption or be granted exemption. Is there any processing criteria that the regional district looks at, or it's basically historical and based on demand from specific organizations? And have we ever said no to people who ask for an exemption?
I can give you the history over the last 2 or 3 years upon which I've been here, and there haven't been any others that have come forward to ask. Others could. This particular grant is one that the regional district is linked with in terms of tenure for the property was issued to the regional district, and the Sunnydale Golf Course Society is the one that operates it, whereas the next one is an independent body of which we don't have an interest in the land. But the criteria by which applicants qualify is set out in the Local Government Act. Recreational purposes and historical purposes are 2 of the criteria. So the criteria is really set by the Local Government Act.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the clarification. All those, Director Kettler.
Sorry, I was just wondering, so you're saying that it wasn't just a property tax exemption, there was other tax implications or other, I wasn't quite clear on
I
that.
just meant that by exempting the property taxes, that means it exempts them from any taxes that they would otherwise be owing to the regional districts, so that would include any of the services of the regional districts, some of which are regional, some of which might be local service areas.
Thank you.
All right, and I don't see any further questions, but maybe further to that, so if we're talking about exemptions, let's say there is, we have the, say for solid waste, where we have a certain amount that we, those are the tipping fees, but then there's a taxation side, would they be exempted from, say, I'm just picking that off the top of my head.
Yep. Beth Dunlop, our CFO, do you have any other comments or input?
We'll try not to go too far into the weeds, is it?
Yes, they're exempt from everything. They're exempt from hospital district taxes, the little portion that's on there for municipal finance authority, library, policing, all the provincial taxes for schools, roads, they're exempt from everything.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Start a golf course. Director Arbor.
Maybe one last one. Do those exemption, I guess, is there a deadline? Is this the only time a year where we're going to see exemption, or do they recur and people can basically approach us at any time?
So with the two exemptions that we have, so these organizations are required to send a application in annually, and a bylaw has to be adopted annually. If we wanted to do it for longer than 1 year period, I think we can go up to 10 years, but it has to be a public process. You'd put it out to the public to comment on it. So what happens in the regional district as opposed to the municipalities, which is quite different, most of the exemptions for, say, churches, community halls, and nonprofit organizations, those are all authorized by the BC assessment. So we don't have, as a regional district, don't have the say. They don't come to you here. The only ones that come to you here are the ones that would qualify under the Local Government Act. And that is, for example, the Sunnydale one and the Heritage. There are some riparian ones in the regional district too, but we don't have any, so.
Maybe just a quick follow-up.
Sure.
Have we, just a quick follow-up, have we ever done the 10-year agreements to the regional district, or are we?
Not since I've been here.
Not since you've been there. Thank you.
And then I guess one other question, and this is probably more just a rhetorical question, I suppose, is when we look at this, so we're given 100% tax exemption except for the pro shop, but we don't have a dollar amount that's associated with that, or is that in a report somewhere?
It was in a report at the Committee of the Whole.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. Thanks very much. That's it then. I don't see any other lights. Quickly, all those in favor? Any opposed? Whew. There is another recommendation, number 2. Director Grieve.
Oh. I'm just about there. Pursuant to the section 392(1)(c) of the Local Government Act, a bylaw be prepared providing a permissive tax exemption for the taxation year of 2020 for an amount equal to 100% of the net taxable land and improvements for Section 32, Land District 34, Township 1, folio number 771-010800.000, the Union Bay Historical Society.
So we could second that?
I already did.
Oh, thanks. Excellent.
There you
go. Any questions, Director Arbor?
No.
Okay. All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. And there's a third recommendation. If somebody going to read it out, or
Okay.
alternate Director Cole Hamilton?
Okay, that staff review the recreational grant service function 600 for the purpose of A, developing guidelines for applicants, B, ensuring a transparent process and equal opportunity to funding, C, determining if some initiatives should be funded by contract rather than by relying on the grant processes, D, evaluating the possibility of consolidation of services or grant programs, and that staff bring back a report reviewing the above and providing recommendations.
All right, and do we need a seconder? Oh, we're good? Excellent. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes. And recommendation 4. Well, you can always just go to the therefores,
I'll
you know.
move.
Oh, you can?
Oh, can I? I just go there to the therefore. Be it resolved that the CVRD board directs staff to prepare an amended pesticide use on regional district property policy prohibiting the use of synthetic herbicides for the control of invasive weeds on CVRD property, and further that this resolution and the draft policy be referred to the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Board for feedback prior to consideration of adoption by the CVRD board.
Excellent. Any questions or comments regarding that, Director Grieve?
Yeah, just, it does say whereas in there about the Schedule A, the really nasty invasive plants like giant hogweed and Japanese knotweed. So is that the only ones we have in this area? They're actually in the Schedule A? So, no, of course not.
No, I don't have Schedule A in front of me, but they're not the only ones in this area that are in Schedule A. It's quite a comprehensive list. And the reason why we aligned with Schedule A is because the province will change that list as need be over time. So
And it's
it'll
set
align
by
with
the
that.
province, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other questions or comments, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. And I think we already did the next one, and so we're right into bylaws. So, all right, this is going to go faster now. We have bylaw 587, if somebody would like to.
Move first and second.
All right. And yeah, I don't think we necessarily, do we need to read these out as much? Yeah, because I think we've gone through them all. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. Excellent. And are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. Next, we have bylaw number 588. Excellent. Any questions regarding that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. All right. Any questions? None. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes. Now we have recommendation 590 for first and second. Excellent. Any questions regarding that? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes.
Move third.
Excellent. Any questions on third? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes. And bylaws for adoption, 583.
Second.
Excellent. Any questions regarding final adoption? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that passes. And under new business, proclamation Fanny Bay Challenge. And Director Arbor, if you'd like to move this and maybe speak to it.
Thank you. I want to thank our chair for proclaiming this earlier this week, a privilege of the chair. So as some of you may know, Highway 19A is closed for 6 weeks, just south of Fanny Bay, and this came as a bit of a surprise with not a lot of lead time for businesses to even make contingencies. So there's been some meetings with the MLA and the ministry, but people there decided to try to take a positive spin on it, and so we started the Fanny Bay Challenge, which is to encourage Comox Valley residents to go and support the businesses during that time. So I challenge each of you to go down to Royston, Union Bay, and Fanny Bay, and either go to the pub or go shopping for early Christmas during September, and encourage your friends to do the same. It's a beautiful drive down south. And I can tell you that once you tell them it's the Fanny Bay Challenge, you will be beloved by those businesses. So thanks to the chair for proclaiming September the Fanny Bay Challenge month.
Excellent.
It's in the regional district. It's an unincorporated area just north of Deep Bay and Bowser, and you should definitely take a walk there.
Excellent, and that doesn't need to be moved or seconded, but who knows, maybe we can do a Fanny Bay / cricket day or something. Well, I mean, if the cricket game's not going to last more than a day, then, you know.
And it's, by the way, it's very Instagrammable. I don't have Instagram, but for those who have it, you know, take your pictures, share it on social media.
Fantastic, thanks very much. And we also have a proclamation for Kids Sport BC, and basically declaring September 7th to 13th Kids Sport Week within the Comox Valley Regional District. Again, just another way to encourage sport, and in particular getting kids that might not otherwise be able to participate the capacity to go out and participate. So. And I think that is it. So there's no media here. So we do have it in camera, though. So something like, excellent. All those in favor of going in camera? Any opposed? And off we go.